Hey man, Shane here. Many moments ago, Jeff Nippard made this video about how to become a fake natty, about how to give off the impression of taking steroids without actually needing to take steroids. To do that, he assembled a group of lifters and then he interviewed a few people to see which of their body features gave off the impression of steroid abuse. I say abuse instead of use because if somebody's using steroids for medical reasons, such as to treat hypogonadism, then that would bring their testosterone into the healthy range, and they would give off the same impression as someone with naturally healthy levels of testosterone. What Jeff Nippard is looking for is signs of steroid abuse. It's a weird idea for a video, and I don't think Jeff came to the right conclusion, but I don't know who these people were, and I don't know exactly what he asked them, and I don't have access to all of their answers. So, I tried to replicate Jeff's findings myself. I surveyed 700 people, male and female, and I asked them which of the lifters looked like they were taking steroids, just like Jeff did. But then I also asked a bunch of other questions, such as asking the women which physiques they found the most attractive, and asking the guys which physiques they would most like to have. And then, forgetting about Jeff's group of guys, I asked them to give me famous examples of what they considered to be the ideal male physique. By cross-referencing those different answers, we can figure out if people actually like the aesthetic of steroid abuse. And I asked a bunch of other questions too. I'll go through the findings in a second, but let's start at the beginning.
And in this video, I'll show you how to build up those features 100% naturally. By the end, you'll know exactly how to look enhanced without ever touching a needle.
Jeff's video is titled, How to Look Enhanced Without Steroids, with the implication being that looking enhanced is good, so here are some tips about how you, a natural lifter, can look more like you take steroids. And that's a weird thing to imply, but sometimes our intuitions about these things are a little bit weird, so let's flip it around. Which woman gives off a better impression? The one who looks like she got tons of plastic surgery but claims to be natural, or the one who actually looks natural? There's some interesting nuance here. Obvious plastic surgery tends to look interesting because features get exaggerated or changed, often in a way we can't quite put our finger on. It looks uncanny, and there's a fascination there. You might find yourself wanting to look for longer. But thinking that something is intriguing doesn't mean that we prefer it. In fact, most people prefer women who look natural, and most women who get plastic surgery try to do it in a subtle way that looks as natural as possible. And sometimes there are scandals where they get caught trying to hide it, just like with fake natties. There are guys who take steroids in that same subtle way. For example, James Smith takes high TRT doses, keeping his testosterone cruising at the upper limit of the natural range. It's enough to make him look noticeably leaner and more muscular, but he still looks athletic in a passably natural sort of way, and I bet most people think he still looks pretty good. He's open about his steroid use, so he still gets some of the stigma, but I think he's okay with that. He's already married and already a dad, so the attraction and fertility issues aren't a problem, and he's the co-owner of a TRT clinic, so instead of costing him money, taking steroids earns him money. That's a different sort of problem. He's the same age as me, and I think it's harmful that he's encouraging guys in their 30s and 40s to get hooked on steroids, especially when most guys, including guys who are way older than us, can build fit, strong, healthy, and aesthetic bodies without needing to inject drugs for the rest of their lives. Anyway, my point is that even if you're getting plastic surgery and taking steroids, I have a feeling you'd look better if you did it in the healthiest way possible, trying to look as natural as possible, the exact opposite of what Jeff Nippard is recommending. Take a look at this. Here's what appears to be 7 years of natural progress versus 7 years of taking steroids. I know bodybuilders like the steroid look, and I don't expect other people to cater to my personal aesthetic preferences, but if it were me, and if a wizard offered me the chance to give off the illusion of steroid abuse, a pure aesthetic change with no other downside at all, I wouldn't do it because I don't think it looks good. I don't know if this other guy is natural, but he looks natural and he looks amazing. You would think that the guy on steroids would want to look like this, like the natural lifter. That's why I think it's so strange that Jeff Nippard made a video like this. He isn't quite glorifying actual steroid abuse, but he's definitely glorifying the aesthetic of steroid abuse, which I think is bad and I don't like it, but I also had the suspicion that it was incorrect. Or at least that's what I was thinking when I sent out the survey. It turns out that some of my suspicions were wrong. Also, I'm sure you've noticed that some of these steroid-looking guys are incredibly famous, which brings up a question. If these guys give off the impression of taking steroids and then lying about it, how are they succeeding so tremendously? When I surveyed women, 95% of them thought that Jeff Nippard looked like he took steroids, and less than 1% of women rated his physique as the most attractive. That doesn't mean they didn't like his physique, it just means that they didn't choose it as their favorite. 90% of women thought Shamar looked like he took steroids, and he also got less than 1% of women rating his body as the most attractive. 80% of women thought that Hussein looked like he took steroids, but he actually did pretty well with women. 16% of women preferred his physique. I thought that maybe he was getting those votes from within the 20% of women who thought that he looked natural. So I checked, and no, some of the women who rated his physique as the most attractive also thought he looked like he took steroids. In another survey from a couple of years ago, over 99% of women said they preferred guys who didn't take steroids, and 79% of them said they wouldn't even consider dating a guy who took steroids. So there is a glimmer of promise for Jeff's fake natty idea. Maybe there are some women out there who like the idea of a natural lifter who looks like he takes steroids. I'll delve deeper into this in a second. 100% of women thought that Spencer and Seb looked natural, and they had 48% and 26% of women finding their physiques the most attractive. They won by a landslide. So, according to most women, the most attractive physiques are the ones that look natural, fit, and healthy, even if they don't look massively muscular or super lean. With men, that changes a little bit. Most guys thought Julian looked the most steroidy, and less than 1% of guys wanted a physique like his. Jeff Nippard and Shamar also got a lot of steroid votes, and not many people wanted to look like them. But here's where it gets interesting. 56% of guys thought that Hussein Farhat looked like he took steroids. Of the guys who thought he looked natural, 49% of them said he had their favorite physique. Of the guys who thought he looked like he took steroids, 30% said he had their favorite physique. 49% of guys thought that Tolga looked like he took steroids. 22% of the guys who thought he looked natural wanted his physique, and 11% of the guys who thought he looked steroidy wanted his physique. 99% of guys thought that Spencer looked natural, and 34% of guys said he had their favorite physique. So, most women preferred Spencer's physique, and most men preferred Hussein's physique. Overall, 75% of lifters voted for a physique they thought looked natural, and 85% of non-lifters voted for a physique they thought looked natural. But all of this is based on these 8 guys I had in the lineup, and I had a suspicion that Hussein was doing well because there wasn't anyone here who looked strong and athletic in a more natural way. Spencer and Seb look healthy and athletic, which is great, that's why they did so well, but they don't look strong and healthy and athletic. And I think that's how Hussein Farhat managed to climb in the rankings. In Jeff Nippard's follow-up video, where he attempted to put out the fire he lit with the first one, he included a different lineup of guys. Jeremy Etienne is in there, and Jeremy Etienne looks healthy and athletic, and he also looks stronger than Spencer does. Jesse Lyko is in there too, and he's a thinly strong guy. He doesn't look like a bodybuilder, but he's lean and he looks like he can lift things, and he's got a cool aesthetic going on too. And I wanted to slip myself in there, but my tattoos are too recognizable, so I slipped in an old photo from back when I was 170 pounds. And then there are the fake natties on the right. Jeremy Etienne, Jesse Lyko, and my old photo all outperformed the more muscular steroid-looking guys in the eyes of both women and men, and all of us look supernatural. So I think that solves that part of the mystery, kind of. I don't really like this spread. The bodies are too cropped. Plus, we're getting height, muscle shapes, and bone structure mixed in and confusing everything. And again, it's possible for a natural lifter to get quite a bit bigger without looking steroidy. I've gained 30 more pounds and doubled my strength since this photo, and I don't ever get accused of taking steroids. And there are natural looking naturals who are way bigger than I am. So I also asked people to write in their favorite celebrity physique. That way, I could see what type of body they prefer when they can choose whatever they want. Women tended to like guys with a Brad Pitt sort of physique, no surprise there, but quite a few of them also chose guys who looked quite a lot stronger. Some men chose physiques that were even leaner and even stronger than that, and some of those physiques looked kind of steroidy, but the most popular physiques, I think, look more like peak natural lifters. So I think if you followed Jeff's fake natty advice, and if it worked, then it would make you look worse in the eyes of almost everyone. But I don't think it would work. I don't think emphasizing your shoulders and your biceps and your upper chest would make you look off in the way that makes people suspect steroid abuse. I think those are perfectly fine muscles to emphasize. But there's another problem, and this time it's a problem I had a hand in making. Whenever I talk about this stuff, I get questions from people who are confused about why the steroidy guys are rich and famous and doing so well with women. If it looks bad, then why is it working? So there's this meme of Stacey Thompson interviewing Flex Lewis at the British Grand Prix, and she's biting her lip, and it looks kind of like she's attracted to him. What's actually happening is that Flex is talking about his mom's battle with cancer, and Stacey is fighting to hold back tears.
The reason why she got the way she did is because she was talking. My mother was supposed to be present in the show, and she was battling cancer.
Yeah.
So she got emotion. She got filled up full of emotion, and I was kind of fighting back the tears too.
However, if you crop the meme wider, you can see Flex Lewis's wife there. He's a famous bodybuilder. He's taking all of the steroids, and he's married with kids. And he's 5'5" too, so he's about the same height as Jeff Nippard. And Jeff Nippard is in a relationship too. I think he's either engaged to or married to Stephanie Buttermore. And his physique is doing even better with men. He's one of the most famous muscle building influencers in the world. He's succeeding on both fronts. And then the same with Hussein Farhat. I have no idea if he's doing well with women, but he's definitely rich and famous, and quite a lot of guys aspire to look like him. But he also has one of the worst reputations in the fitness industry. Most people don't trust him, and I don't trust him either. I have more to say in the next section, but I want to quickly go into this Hussein Farhat drama. I agree with everyone else in the world that the 18-month timeline of Hussein's transformation seems suspicious. I try to veer very strongly in the direction of giving people the benefit of the doubt, but the more you look into it, the less and less trustworthy Hussein seems. He's business partners with Greg Doucette, and Greg Doucette was almost certainly a fake natty. A week after winning a natural bodybuilding competition, he got caught smuggling steroids, and then right after that, he got banned from bike racing for refusing the drug test. That was a long time ago, and people change, and I'm all for a good redemption arc, but Greg Doucette just recently got caught selling fake testosterone, which he admitted to after being caught.
However, we did discover some bad news. The bad news is that with further testing going above and beyond what FDA standards are, using advanced testing methods such as mass spectrometry, something that's not required in the fitness industry for these products, that what's actually in the product isn't in fact testosterone, at least not in large quantities.
Greg and Hussein are selling real testosterone now, but real testosterone is still a bullshit supplement, and these guys aren't stupid, and I suspect they know it's bullshit. I think they're luring people in with brain rot content and then ripping them off however they can. For an even more recent example, Greg and Hussein went around telling people that Hussein was on steroids to drum up attention.
Alright, so everything you just saw in the last video with Greg was a joke. It was planned to be a video where me and Greg make fun of everyone that's saying that I'm not natural because it just doesn't make sense.
And then Scott Herman caught Hussein plagiarizing Jeff Nippard's video about how to get abs in 60 days. Jeff Nippard's ab video was sketchy and misleading and incorrect in many ways. I have a video on that here. And then Hussein just straight up plagiarized it. So, if Hussein is business partners with a fake natty, lies to create drama, and plagiarizes other people's videos, then I think it's reasonable to think he might be lying about being natural. Jeff Nippard eventually reached the same conclusion, and he stopped defending him. There's a famous feminist book from 1990 called The Beauty Myth by Naomi Wolf. I disagree with almost everything she says, and if you want to learn more about female beauty, then I recommend Survival of the Prettiest by Nancy Etkoff instead. And if you want to learn about attraction more broadly, then I recommend The Evolution of Desire by David Buss. But Naomi Wolf does make a couple of good points. The fashion industry has a history of women competing amongst each other to be the thinnest, which led to drug abuse and eating disorders, and it made almost everyone sick and miserable. But the aesthetic of undereating was held up as a beauty ideal, and everyday women started trying to imitate it. Wolf writes, "I knew that the social expectation to be so thin as to be unlikely to menstruate was a sick ideal, and that you often had to become sick to conform to it. Those very disorders are now so widespread and in fact almost destigmatized by intense publicity that they have become virtually normal." We're seeing the same thing happen with bodybuilders and steroid abuse. It's becoming so intensely publicized that it's beginning to lose its stigma and seem normal. Young guys are starting to idealize the aesthetic of drug abuse. I'm worried that Jeff Nippard's idea that natural lifters should be trying to look like enhanced lifters is making it seem as if the enhanced aesthetic is the ideal aesthetic. That would be a sick ideal, and I think we ought to push back against it. Only about 1% of people voted for Jeff Nippard's physique, and that sounds bad, but think of an artist like Picasso. Most people think Picasso's art is weird, and they don't like it, and they don't understand why he's considered one of the greatest artists of all time. But there's only one Picasso, so even if only 1% of people love his art, there's far more demand than supply, which can create a fierce bidding war. This strange painting that most people don't like sold for $179 million. I'm a bigger fan of Andrew McLean than Picasso, but Picasso was incredibly skilled and creative, and there's no doubt that he played a tremendous role in shaping art history, and it makes sense that the people who care the most about art can see the value there. I think a similar thing is going on with Jeff Nippard. He's one of the top fitness influencers in the world with millions of followers, and I'm not big into bodybuilding, but I can tell he's excellent at it, and people who are excellent at things don't tend to have problems. Women are attracted to it and men aspire towards it. I don't think Jeff Nippard is going to change the history of bodybuilding, but let's say he has a 1 in 1,000 physique, according to the standards of natural bodybuilding. If 1% of people prefer that kind of physique, then there are 10 people who prefer it for every person who has it. The demand exceeds the supply. I bet there's something else going on here too. I bet most of Jeff Nippard's fans aren't trying to get as bulky as him. The reason I guess that is that because many of the guys who filled out this survey watched Jeff Nippard's videos, but most of them chose bodies that weren't as bulky as his. Even then, I still think his physique is an asset. By being too big, he's showing that he's overqualified for his job. I bet a lot of guys think that if Jeff Nippard can get too big, then his advice will definitely work for people who are trying to get halfway big. The problem is that if you take steroids to look cooler or more attractive, you'll almost certainly just be screwing yourself over. The vast majority of people actively dislike steroids, and the small minority of people who do like them are usually the sorts of people with exceptionally high pro bodybuilding standards. They're comparing you against world-class bodybuilders. You've entered into a who can take more drugs without dying competition against people who are willing to die at 30 years old. If you want to pursue bodybuilding excellence, then I would go after the natural bodybuilding aesthetic. And if it were up to me, it would be the aesthetic from 70 years ago, back when bodybuilding still had more of a connection to health and fitness. That way, even if you fall short, you'll still wind up with a strong, healthy, and athletic physique that looks amazing to almost everyone. And if you succeed, you'll also get the respect of people who are into the sport of bodybuilding. If you're a natural lifter and you're going after a natural aesthetic, there won't ever come a point where you start being penalized for being too good at it. So try to squat 2 plates, bench 3 plates, eat 4 plates, and deadlift 5 plates. I think that's how it goes. Anyway, that's it for now. I hope you liked the video. If you're subscribed, thank you so much. And if you want my help building muscle, I'll link our programs and online coaching below. I hope to see you in the next one.